Are we witnessing the return of DBU? Some of y'all doubted Corey Raymond. It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get podcasts. Of course, on YouTube as well, so please subscribe. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season off with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Man, the LSU Tigers are smoking in the transfer portal. I got more to talk about here. We do visit with Brandon Olson from Locked on Gators because two of the prospects LSU's landed already are from Gainesville. So we knew about Jakeem Jackson, the cornerback, Jack Pyburn, the defensive end, who, if you were here on the previous episode, we told you, was at dinner Sunday night at Ruffino's in Baton Rouge at Blake Baker and Kevin Peoples. They didn't let him get out of town without signing the paperwork. So we'll hear about those two prospects from Brandon Olson of Locked on Gators here in just a smidge. But undeniably, one of the biggest disappointments of the Brian Kelly era so far has been the dissolution of DBU for a solid decade, and actually longer, but a solid decade under Corey Raymond and even prior. LSU had built a reputation as the most fertile ground for defensive backs in college football, and it was earned. And I don't need to rattle off the names. Sometimes it's just fun to rattle off the names. You can go back to Corey Webster and LaRon Landry and Travis Daniels, and you could work your way all throughout defensive backs that were All-Americans like Shevish Jackson and Craig Stelz, and you could work your way into a new era with Patrick Peterson and Tyrann Mathieu and Morris Claiborne and Thorold Simon, all the way through Eric Reed. Y'all know the names? Dante Jackson, Tre'Davious White, first-round draft picks, Derek Stingley, Christian Fulton. Look around. LSU was always loaded with defensive backs, Grant Delpit. And at the end of Corey Raymond's tenure in Baton Rouge, the first tenure in Baton Rouge, it wasn't like it slowed. Y'all realize what the cornerback room looked like in 2020, the COVID year? Derek Stingley, Eli Ricks, Dwight McGlothern, Cordell Flott, Jay Ward. Y'all, it ain't like that narrative from some of y'all. Corey Raymond didn't recruit. Corey Raymond lost his fastball. Shut up. Just shut up. How to be rude. Shut up. All that to say, in 1 year's time, look at what Corey Raymond has done. He has gotten you back in the mix with every significant defensive back possible. You landed the number one defensive back in the country in DJ Pickett. You landed the number one defensive back in Louisiana in Naden Anding. And now look at what you've done in the portal. You've gone out, you've added Jakeem Jackson from Florida, who was the number 3 cornerback in America when he signed with Corey Raymond in Gainesville. And now, on Monday, you added Mansoor Delane. If you're not familiar with Mansoor Delane, let me give you a little bit of a refresher. And I understand that a lot of you probably aren't paying super close attention to Virginia Tech football. That's why we're here, to let you know what you need to know. So as a recruit coming out of the state of Maryland, Mansoor Delane at 6'1", just under 190 pounds, was a 3-star. He was the 55th best cornerback in America. But he goes to Virginia Tech, leads the team in pass breakups as a true freshman, and ends up becoming a freshman All-American. Not bad for a guy that was the 55th best cornerback prospect in America. Well, Mansoor Delane, after that freshman All-America season, goes on to start the next 2 years at Virginia Tech. In 2023, started all 13 games, 54 tackles and a pick, a couple of passes defended as well. This year in 2024, started all 12 games, another 54 tackles, a TFL, 2 forced fumbles, 11 passes defended, and 4 interceptions. Okay. 33 games played, 29 games started, 22 passes defended, 6 interceptions. For his efforts, Mansoor Delane, as a transfer, was rated by 24/7 as the 38th best overall transfer, any position, and the second best cornerback in the transfer portal. Not bad for Corey Raymond and a guy who apparently had lost his fastball. Y'all, when I look at the cornerback room in particular for 2025, this is what it's supposed to look like at LSU. Now, you still need help at safety. And Jake Olson has work to do. And the Tigers are targeting safety help in the portal. And I'm still very bullish on Deshaun Spears, who played a lot as a freshman, with Sage Ryan now in the transfer portal, Jordan Gilbert, who had a really, really rough year, but could return for a 5th season of college football. And, of course, you got Deshaun Spears there as well. You're going to have to go add impact guys at safety, and hopefully that comes. But if we're just looking at the cornerback room, you return Ashton Stamps, who will now be a 3-year starter. You're bringing in Jakeem Jackson, who was a high 4-star. The starter at Florida this past year before injury cost him a season after 2 games. You're bringing in Mansoor Delane, who we just talked about, the number 2 cornerback in this year's portal cycle. 3rd-year player, 2-year starter, will be entering his 4th year in college, coming down to LSU. You bring back PJ Woodland, who contributed a lot for you as a true freshman. And you're adding DJ Pickett, 5-star, number 1 cornerback in America, who's likely a day 1 starter. And you know what that tells me? Ashton Stamps, 3-year starter. Jakeem Jackson, coming in from Florida, was a starter at Florida. Mansoor Delane, 2-year starter there at Virginia Tech, going into his 4th season. And you're looking at DJ Pickett, 5-star, number 1 cornerback in the country. None of those guys are afraid of competition. It's one of the things Corey Raymond preached forever. Competition, the best guys will play. Come compete against the best, learn from the best, and be the best. And he's immediately brought that mindset back to LSU. Not only the mindset, but the talent infusion. And it took 1 year to do it. Let me just put a parallel here, okay? So if we look at a comp year to year, okay? In the opener of 2024, you had Sage Ryan playing boundary corner. Because Zy Alexander wasn't healthy yet, you had Ashton Stamps and Sage Ryan playing corner. Even after Ryan moved to safety, if you looked at your top 3 corners, it was Zy Alexander, Ashton Stamps, and your number 3 corner was PJ Woodland, a true freshman 3-star who was trying to get his legs under him. So Woodland was your number 3. Keep in mind, Stamps, Jakeem Jackson, Mansoor Delane. Still haven't mentioned Woodland or DJ Pickett. That's 5. In whatever order you want it, Stamps, Jackson, Delane, Stamps, Delane, Jackson, Delane, Stamps, Pickett, Jackson, Delane. However you want to do it. Any way you want to order the 5 guys I just mentioned to you. Stamps, Jackson, Delane, Pickett, Woodland. Order them however you want. 1 through 5. Literally any order. It doesn't matter. Any order. The number 3 guy is better than true freshman PJ Woodland. No matter which way you order it. If Stamps is the number 3, Jackson's the number 3, Delane's the number 3, Pickett's the number 3, or Woodland as a sophomore, any way you slice it, your talent is immediately light years better at corner than you were a year ago. You wanted impact transfers? You got them. Let me also mention to you this. Brian Kelly said, point blank, they were going to be aggressive in the portal, right? Those are his words. Going to be aggressive in the portal. I always say actions speak louder than words. If actions speak louder than words, then Brian Kelly's actions are screaming full throat. For context, a year ago, LSU signed 9 transfers out of the portal. The highest rated transfer signee was CJ Daniels. On3 ranked him number 101. Any position, all transfers, ranking all the transfers. The highest ranked transfer from LSU a year ago was CJ Daniels at 101. Second highest, Jordan Gilbert at 146. Third highest, AJ Swan at 256. You didn't have a single player inside the top 100. And only 2 inside the top 150. Your third highest player was AJ Swan at 256. You added bodies. You didn't add quality. That's the difference. Quality over quantity. This year, as of right now, Barry and Brown in the same rankings, the On3 portal rankings, same rankings. Barry and Brown from Kentucky, number 14 in the country. Moore, the center from Virginia Tech, Braylon Moore, who's not yet officially signed, but he's 100% predicted by everybody to be at LSU. He just hasn't announced formally yet. But we'll wait on it. But either way, he's number 34. Jakeem Jackson, 73. Michael Van Buren, 91. That's 4 inside the top 100, according to On3. And by the way, Mansoor Delane, 24/7, has him number 38 overall. On3 has him 115. Jack Pyburn from Florida, 116. Bauer Sharp, the tight end from Oklahoma, 122. Jamari Butler from Nebraska, 146. I just rattled off 8 players. All 8 are in the top 150. 4 are in the top 91. Top 100, call it. 4 in the top 100, all 8 in the top 150. A year ago, LSU's highest rated portal transfer, 101. Second highest, Jordan Gilbert, 146. Those are the only 2 in the top 150. Next was AJ Swan at 256. You have added numbers and you have added quality numbers. That is the difference from a year ago. You're not going to sign 30 out of the portal. You're not going Ole Miss. You're not building your roster through the portal. What you're doing is adding quality in the limited numbers. Maybe they settle 9 last year. Maybe they settle in the 10, 11, 12 range this year, whatever that number is going to be. But it's going to be impact guys, and that much is clear. Mansoor Delane, the latest from Virginia Tech to sign with LSU. DBU on its way back. Okay, it's Locked on LSU, your team every day. Brandon Olson, Locked on Gators, joins us after Jack Pyburn became the second Gator to join the Tigers. Want to tell you about those 2 new Tigers. You'll hear it next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Oh, it's almost time, y'all. We are counting down not only the days, but the hours at this point. The college football playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the College Football Playoff Kickoff Show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the SMU Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon Eastern. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action when the college football playoff presented by Allstate begins. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. So LSU has officially added 7 transfers, although Braylon Moore, we're all expecting, will be 8. And Nick Anderson is another name that we're all expecting could pop soon. Nick Anderson, a wide receiver from Oklahoma who averaged 21 yards per reception as a freshman in 2023, did not play in 2024. But make no mistake, that is a legit unquestioned, dynamic, number one receiver if you can get him. So we'll hold our breath. We'll cross our fingers. We'll knock on wood, and we'll hope that Nick Anderson ends up in the purple and gold as well. But we already know that two former Florida Gators are officially LSU Tigers. Jakeem Jackson, the cornerback, and Jack Pyburn, the outside linebacker, defensive end. So Florida positionally just runs a different defense where they have the Jack linebacker, that outside linebacker spot. And that's what Jack Pyburn played at Florida. Had a chance to visit with my buddy Brandon Olson from Locked On Gators to tell us a little bit about both Jackson and Pyburn from the perspective of someone who watches every snap of every game that Florida plays. Let's start. We'll go chronologically. Let's start with Jakeem Jackson. And you've heard me talk about Jakeem Jackson, right? The number 3 cornerback in America in the 2023 class, signed with Corey Raymond, played a lot as a freshman, was the starter in 2024, injured in the second game, cost him the rest of the season. But I asked Brandon Olson to give me the 10,000-foot flyover of Jakeem Jackson.
I mean, the promise there is just insane. He was a very highly rated player coming out of high school, elite athlete. He was a blue-chip receiver until he moved to corner, and then he started taking next steps. So he's learning still how to play the position. Obviously, the relationship with Corey Raymond helps him out, but I think he's got potential to be tremendous. One of my favorite things about him was his confidence. We saw the Vanderbilt game in 2023. He got beat bad as a true freshman, came right back, and they went right back at him. And he came right back and answered the call in the red zone. It was a great possession for him. I think he's got potential to be a great corner.
One of the things when I was listening to Brandon talk about Jakeem Jackson that struck me was talking about how he was a receiver in high school that converted to defensive back. And that's something that we've seen pretty commonly. When Corey Raymond identifies a skill set of someone who can backpedal, turn their hips, run, long, rangy, those are the guys that identify as great corners. And Jakeem Jackson is 6'1", 190 pounds, again, a long, rangy corner. That's what Corey Raymond wants. Dudes from Louisiana, East Texas, and South Florida, and dudes that are tall, long, and rangy. I mean, that is the Corey Raymond prototype, and you have it there in Jakeem Jackson. How about the first thing that Brandon Olson said there when he talked about the promise is sort of intoxicating, the potential there for Jakeem Jackson. Now it's on Corey Raymond to realize it. I asked Brandon Olson also if Jakeem Jackson was going to be a starter in 25. Remember, he was recruited by Corey Raymond, but Will Harris came in to replace Corey Raymond, so a lot of things changed a little bit. This was interesting.
He was struggling a little bit with the change from Corey Raymond to Will Harris. A lot of guys changed their technique under Will Harris. Jakeem Jackson didn't so much. But again, he got hurt in game 2. So it's not like we have to see much of him this year, but I think that he would have been in 2025.
So said he would have been a starter in 2025, thought he would have been anyway. But with the interesting thing that maybe is a telltale is talking about how maybe he struggled under a new defensive backs coach. And sometimes guys are taught a certain way or coached a certain technique, and it jives better. It's why consistency oftentimes matters with coaching. We talked about this with a lot of defensive players. I know I had this conversation with guys like Mekhi Wingo. Several weeks back, I had a chance to have Jacobian Guillory, LSU defensive lineman, in studio with me. And you look at Jacobian Guillory's history, my goodness, he went from having, being recruited by Ed Ogeron and Jamar Cain as his defensive line coach. And you just had this massive amount of turnover during his time in Baton Rouge from, obviously Pete Jenkins filling in after Ed Ogeron brought Pete Jenkins in when John Jancic had to replace Jimmy Lindsey. It was just a revolving door at defensive line coach. Now Bo Davis is back. So consistency matters because every coach is going to have its different style of, I should have mentioned Gerald Chapman as well, who was the sort of an interim defensive line coach when Jamar Cain left for the Denver Broncos. And then Chapman went to Tulane, and then Jimmy Lindsey came in, and then Jimmy Lindsey unfortunately got sick, and then that's when John Jancic moved into that spot, and then they brought back Pete Jenkins, and now Bo Davis is there. You understand the point. Like, you have someone with a different voice, a different message, a different style, that many different people teaching you. Sometimes you just connect or resonate with a certain coaching style, and apparently that's the case with Jakeem Jackson and Corey Raymond. So it's on Corey to maximize it. Now, LSU also had a Jack Pyburn. And Jack Pyburn is, by On3, the number 116 overall prospect in the portal. He's a guy that finished second on Florida's team in tackles this year with 60, played that outside linebacker spot. But that's the interesting thing about Pyburn, because he's not necessarily a rush edge. But when we visit with Brandon Olson, he raved about Jack Pyburn.
I am a firm believer that every defense needs a psycho. That's him. He's just you're gonna love him in press conferences. I mean, he had one this year. He's like, hey, you know what? Sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail. I'm always going to be the hammer. Like everyone is always going to feel my pain more than I'm going to feel theirs. He's just a menace down there. Great run defender. Absolutely set the edge and really changed the defense. This Florida Gators run defense last year was horrendous. Jack Pyburn, of course, got hurt last season, tore his ACL against Arkansas. But he came back this year and was just a menace on rundown, specifically, not so much the pass rusher, of course, but tremendous run defender. And every defense needs a guy like that. And I definitely think that Florida's going to miss him next year, specifically in those situations. Obviously, things happened where he left, but I think that Jack Pyburn is just one hell of a run defender, tone setter defensively.
That's really interesting because part of the narrative around Pyburn in leaving Florida is that he wanted to rush the passer. And so there was this report from Zach Abelverdi that Pyburn had these demands. It was $45,000 a month. He wanted to be guaranteed a starting role. He wanted to be guaranteed he'd rush the passer and play on third down. And, maybe part of it is just that he didn't jive with the system and something else Brandon told us is that, at Florida, those outside linebackers, they all drop in coverage. It's just the way that it's structured. So when you look at Blake Baker and how Blake Baker gets creative with the way he rushes the passer, maybe there's more of an opportunity. For what it's worth, Pyburn only had one sack this past year at Florida. He had 60 tackles, only 4 TFLs, and 1 sack. But he is a run-stopping end who might be looking for opportunities to rush the passer. I did ask Brandon Olson, can Pyburn rush the passer? Or is this, is it something that they didn't ask him to do, but something he's capable of doing? Here's his opinion.
I think he's strictly a run defender, personally. I think that there's a good reason he wasn't on the field on pass rushing downs and that he wasn't rushing the passer. But I think that people often overlook that. It's like you rotate so much on the defensive front. It's fine to have guys who fit that role. I don't think he's got much bend off the edge, and we really haven't seen much from him. If you look at the Florida State film, he had a nice little two-hand swipe that got his first career full sack for him. But outside of that, there's been very little shown on tape that he's going to be rushing the passer.
So, listen, you added Jamari Butler from Nebraska, who was an accomplished pass rusher in 2023. 8.5 TFLs, 5.5 sacks. And maybe Pyburn is just the Savion Jones of this team, a big edge that's going to set the edge and be a run defender. Or maybe he finds himself a little bit in Blake Baker's scheme, but it'll be interesting to see. You've got a player that's entering his 4th year, that's an accomplished player and is a psycho who brings, as Brandon called him, who brings an edge to a defense, which there were times last year that LSU lacked. And be a welcomed change. As the Tigers continue to add in the portal, we'll continue talking about it right here, Locked on LSU. We'll finish with a quick little thumbnail preview of LSU and Stetson on the hardwood Tuesday at the Maravich Center. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is, gosh, it's so much fun to play. And I never knew about Prize Picks until we started talking about them here at Locked On. It's so easy to download the Prize Picks app. I get a notification every day reminding me to lock in my pick, and you literally just pick more or less with those individual situations. You can make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. And you can win right now up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Now, Prize Picks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account in this sports season. So join now, because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December. And they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas. So download the app and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, basketball Tigers are back at it after suffering a disappointing loss at the hands of SMU and Frisco this past weekend. But 8 o'clock Central Time, the Tigers will tip at the Maravich Center on Tuesday against the Stetson Hatters. And let me just say this as plainly as I possibly can. LSU had better blow the doors off of Stetson. As a matter of fact, LSU had better do that the next 3 opponents they play. If you weren't scoring at home, the SEC went 15-1 on Saturday in the non-conference. Let me say that again slowly. The SEC, which is the number 1 net ranking conference in college basketball, the SEC went 15-1 on Saturday. The one was, you guessed it, LSU losing in Frisco to SMU 74-64. A day where the Tigers, led by 6 at half, committed 13 second half turnovers, got dominated in the paint, lost the rebound battle by 10. It was terrible. And it was a blown opportunity, especially in the pre-conference before league play starts, where it is going to be a mighty struggle to get to 500 because the league is that good. I'm not sure if you noticed on Monday, but the AP released their new top 25. 5 of the top 10, 4 of the top 8 are from the SEC. It's incredible, the depth and strength of this league right now. So you can't waste opportunities. LSU with the loss saw its net ranking fall to 64. Not terrible, especially with an SMU squad that's got a net in the top 40. So it's a quote-unquote quality loss, but a loss nonetheless. Your next 3 games, you cannot afford to lose any of these next 3. You're playing Stetson, UNO, and Mississippi Valley. If I asked you how many teams are in Division I basketball, maybe you'd be able to answer that. Or maybe you'd roundabout get it. Well, there are 364. There's 364 teams in Division I basketball. Stetson, who LSU plays on Tuesday night, their net ranking is 355. There's only 9 teams in college basketball with a lower net ranking than Stetson. Oh, by the way, after Stetson, you play UNO. Their net is 335. And then you play Mississippi Valley. Remember, I told you there are 364 teams in Division I. Mississippi Valley is 364th in the net. They are dead last. Your next 3 games are against, quite literally, 3 of the worst teams in college basketball. Any loss to any of these teams would be, by definition, a cataclysmic, awful loss to a quad 4 team at home when it is going to be hell to try to get to 500 in conference play. Stetson is 1-9 on the season. LSU is a 26.5-point favorite. Stetson's only win was in their season opener against something called New College, Florida. They lost to Omaha, the Citadel. They lost to Oklahoma by 21. They lost to Toledo, where they gave up 103 points. They lost by 7 to East Carolina. They lost by double digits to LaSalle. They lost by 2 at South Florida. They lost by 16 to Mercer. They lost by 9 to FIU. You absolutely have got to go dominate this basketball game. Now, Stetson averages 73 a game. They allow 82 a game. They don't play a lick of defense, but they are 35th in the country. Excuse me. They average 35 rebounds per game, which is 250th in the country, and they're 330th in assists per game. They don't share the basketball. They don't rebound the basketball. They can score and run, but they don't play a lick of defense. LSU, with their length, has got to defend the basket. You've got to run with them, and you got to score. And here's hoping you do. There is no excuse whatsoever to lose this basketball game. Tigers should win it handily. 3 more tune-ups before you get into conference play, and the gauntlet is awaiting, because you'll start with Vanderbilt, which is a winnable game for LSU to start conference play. You can beat Vanderbilt to start SEC. I'm not saying that's going to be easy. They're 9-1 on the season. They're saying the same about you. But after Vanderbilt, you're at Missouri, you're at Ole Miss, you're home against John Calipari's Arkansas squad, you're at number 12 A&M, you're at number 6 Alabama, you're home against number 2 Auburn, you're home against Texas, you're at Georgia, who's one of the most improved teams in college basketball. You got number 17 Ole Miss, then you're at Arkansas, at number 14 Oklahoma. You understand you also got a game against number 7 Florida, number 1 Tennessee, number 4 Kentucky, number 12 A&M again. You understand my point? Just look at conference play. Count out the ranked teams. Ole Miss, A&M, Bama, Auburn, Ole Miss again, Oklahoma, Florida, Tennessee. That's 8. Kentucky 9, Texas A&M 12. I'm sorry, they're ranked 12. 10 of your 18 league games are against ranked opponents. More than half. Getting to 500 is going to be a massive challenge. You cannot afford to lose games like this. You've got to go dominate your next 3, get better, and win the ones that you can win, especially the home games. Okay, that's going to do it for us here, Locked on LSU. Hey, thanks for making us your first listen. Shout out to all the everydayers out there as well. We appreciate you for being with us. And thanks for making us your first listen. Now for your second listen, go check out my guy Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. If you're listening, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.